Hello, my name is Christine Osorio, and I'm the proud superintendent of District 622. We are here today to talk to you about the wonderful plans underway for the design and redevelopment of the new Eagle Point Elementary School. Originally, we planned to meet with you in person for a community neighborhood meeting, but unfortunately, with the current COVID crisis and social distancing guidelines in place, we've had to resort to a video format instead. At the end of today's presentation, you'll have an opportunity to send in your comments, questions, and feedback, and we sure hope to hear from you because your feedback is really important to us. As we get started today, I want to just share that this will not be the first time you'll hear from us. We will be communicating with you regularly throughout this process. Finally, I just want to thank you one more time for your community support. Without our community support, we would never be able to begin this deeply important work of renovating our schools. This opportunity is truly going to change the educational experience of our learners for generations to come. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Now let's take a look at the exciting plans underway for Eagle Point Elementary School. As we get started, I'd like to take a moment and look back at why we are in the place we're in and why we're doing the renovations we're doing. You may recall we had conversations about the current elementary space challenges that we face around District 622. As you may recall, our elementary schools of today are not designed for the programming we currently offer. All of our district schools were built in an era when all that was needed back then was 20 classrooms and a principal's office. Today, our schools provide many different services for students and families. Small classrooms and office spaces are needed for supports such as academic and behavior intervention, special education services, social work, and ESL classes, to name a few. Because our buildings weren't designed to support this level of programming, school staff have had to be very creative. Spaces that were never intended to house students have been converted into instructional spaces. These have included things like storage closets, empty shower stalls, and in some locations even bathrooms and an electrical closet. This challenge was a big part of what drove our decision to take our referendum request out to our community for support. As we look at this, I want to remind us of our facilities bond project goals. Our goal is to have safe, secure, healthy, and innovative school environments. You may recall that we're also looking at consolidating from 14 schools into 11 new and/or renovated schools. With this, all of our schools new renovated schools will have secure entrances. They will all have modern furniture and flexible classroom spaces for independent, small group, and large group learning, improved energy efficiency. We are also looking to renovate and expand 5 schools. Of these is Carver, John Glenn, Skyview, Tartan, and North. Please be reminded that we've already renovated Richardson and Castle. Those 2 projects were funded prior to passing our facilities bond referendum, so those 2 projects are already completed. With this, we're also planning to build 2 new elementary schools, of these Eagle Point Elementary, and a new elementary school that will be built on the current site at Maplewood Middle School. Also, we're planning to close or repurpose a few schools. Oakdale Elementary, Webster, and Maplewood Middle School will be closed entirely. Skyview Elementary the elementary students will be moved out of that building so that the entire building will be able to be used for middle school purposes. Let's take a look at our district-wide construction timeline. All of last year, the 18-19 school year, was where we built our facilities plan, gathered stakeholder input, and ultimately by the end of the school year passed our facilities bond referendum. This current school year, 1920, has largely been focused on designing architectural drawings for our middle schools and Carver Elementary. Those were completed last fall, and construction is actually starting underway right now in the spring of 20. We're also beginning designs right now for the new elementary schools, which you're going to be hearing about today. And in the year 2021, construction is going to continue on these sites. Elementary schools are going to be put out for bid, and we're also going to be diving deeply into our boundary study, which is going to help us look at where the new boundaries will exist for our elementary and middle schools. We're also going to have some design work underway for our high school renovation, which will happen a little further down the road. I'd like to mention, too, that with our boundary study, we've also contracted with a demographer who's helping us to really take a look at our neighborhoods and population, not only current population, but projections for population density now and in the near future as well. So that's all underway as well. As we look ahead in the 2020 21-22 school year, the construction is going to continue for those elementary and middle sites, and high school construction is going to begin. As I've mentioned previously, fall of 22 is our goal for when new boundaries will take place. Elementary and middle school students will then enter into their new assigned elementary and middle schools. And of course, our new schools will reopen at that time. And our high school construction will continue, hopefully with completion by the 23-24 school year. So this is just a look at our overall district construction timeline. As we move forward, I'd just like to talk a minute about our commitments throughout this entire process. Number one, most important, is transparency and communication. We are committed to sharing with the public every single step of the way as we plan, design, and work through construction projects. We will share at the end of this slide deck a website where you can look and follow along with any and all of our construction projects. We regularly post photographs and videos, and people can follow along as well. Fiscal responsibility is a top priority as well. We have been committed to not going over budget on any of our projects. In fact, we have been very strict with projects that might look like they're going to come in over budget. We have agreed they're going to be sent back out to bid, or if need be, back to the drawing board with our architects to bring them back into budget. We have been very clear that we do not want any of the early projects going over budget, because that could compromise our ability to complete some of our later projects. So we're trying to be very fiscally responsible with each and every taxpayer dollar that we are collecting. Additionally, we were trying to be very mindful to support our staff who will be changing buildings. We understand that although this is a very exciting time for our school district, it's also a time of change. And change is challenging. And many of our staff have been in their current buildings for a long time, have many connections, and it's really difficult to consider changing buildings, changing programs, and we want to be very supportive of that. So we're putting a lot of discussions in place right now about how to best do that and support our staff in that transition that will happen a couple of years from now. Same conversation is happening with our families. We've already begun talking with our leadership of all of our PTOs and PTAs parent groups about how can we possibly look to merge our parent groups as our school design changes and as we begin to change boundaries, so that we can build the leadership among all of our parents as we bring these communities together. How can we make the most welcoming environments in each and every one of our newly designed borders, newly designed communities as we bring people together? Additionally, we are committed to having staff and community input during each phase of our planning. We've had significant numbers of work group meetings with all of our teachers and different employee groups throughout, and we continue to do the same with our community groups as well. Today's meeting is one of those that was intended to be a community neighborhood meeting, so we hope that we're going to be gathering feedback from you virtually, although we're not able to be with you in person. Finally, we are committed to really maintaining and archiving our 622 history and legacy. We're aware that as we close a few buildings, there's a lot of history in those buildings, and we don't want to lose any of that history. We're being very mindful to save any stories, photos, any artifacts that we may find and discover as we're cleaning places out, as we talk to people. And we're really mindful of how might be the best way we can archive and save those stories. We are planning underway to have some way that we can put together a virtual museum where we can save and archive those stories together, maybe a website where we can keep the history of 622 alive as we grow and change over time. So please keep in mind, if you have any stories or history, we'd love to hear from you, because we're going to be collecting those and saving those for the development of that online virtual museum. Now let's take a look at the Eagle Point timeline. Sorry, this is going to be specific to the Eagle Point development. So right now, as I already mentioned, the winter of 2019 and spring of 2020 has already begun the design stages. There have been many meetings underway already, gathering feedback and input from different user groups within the community and talking about what the new design is going to look like. And today you're going to get a chance to see some of those early drawings already. This summer, 2020, projects are going to go out for bid. And when you design and build a new school, you don't just put the whole building out to bid to construction companies. You bid out different portions of the project to different companies. So those projects will be going out to bid this summer. And the fall of 2020 is when construction will begin. Winter of 21 is when we expect construction to complete. Interestingly, when you're building a school that we do not have students in occupying it during the construction period, you can keep the construction going year-round. This is very different. When you have students inside of a building during construction, you have to really dance around when and how you can work on different parts of the building. Because this new building will be built on the property, but right next to the current building, they will be able to have construction continue year round, and that project will be able to be completed on a much quicker timeline than renovation projects that we have around the district where we have students in the building. So that will be really fun to watch. Again, fall of 22 is when we'll have students in the new building, and this is true district-wide with all of our new boundaries and all of our new renovated sites. So our next conversation, I'd like to just share with you our website. I mentioned to you earlier that we have a website on our you can find this on our district website, isd622.org/construction. I really encourage you to check out this website because we've been posting a lot of photos. You can see some of our earlier construction projects, and many pictures are there from beginning to end of those projects, from the groundbreaking ceremony all the way through to the ribbon cutting ceremonies. Castle and Richardson, as I mentioned, were those early projects, and it was pretty exciting to see those through from beginning to end. And so I encourage you to follow along on those websites, and we're going to try to continue posting as many not only photos but videos as well. Also, you can submit any questions you have at any time throughout this process to communications@isd622.org. Finally, at this point, I'm actually going to be handing over our presentation to Sal Bagley from our design team at Wold Architects. She's now going to be reviewing with you the design process, timeline, and plans for the new elementary school at Eagle Point. So I look forward to handing it over to Sal. Thank you.
We are excited to share with you today the planning process and schedule, project scope, floor plan, three-dimensional renderings, proposed materials, and site plan for the new elementary school to be built on the Eagle Point site. The planning process for this project, which was done collaboratively for both the new elementary schools on the Eagle Point and Maplewood sites, has been designed to maximize stakeholder involvement and participation. Here you can see the names of the design phases and the key outcomes of each phase. During schematic design, we work with a group of representative stakeholders that we call the Core Planning Group, who co-create the building floor plan with us through discussion of important relationships, taking tours of similar facilities, both digital and in person, and considering how the building operates today, as well as what might happen in the future to keep a perspective on long-term goals. After this process, we move into what is called design development, which is when more detailed engineering occurs and the design is explored more deeply in 3D. We also include more users at this time to get the detailed requirements of each type of space right, an engagement process that we call user groups. We'll show some examples in a few slides. Finally, after all of this input is received and processed, we move into the construction documents phase, where we create drawings that will be publicly bid off by contractors. Both elementary school projects are currently in this phase. After the drawings are complete, the projects will be bid, awarded, and construction can start. Both new elementary schools are designed to be approximately 112,000 square feet, including space for 6 kindergarten classrooms and 5 classrooms each for grades 1 through 5. Each building will also include space for 4 preschool classrooms, as well as specialized spaces for special education, music, STEM, and PE. These projects have followed a parallel design process, as they are intended to have identical space relationships while having unique identities through color palette and material usage. We worked with a core planning group from October through December 2019, schematic design, and design development wrapped up around the end of February. We've been in the construction documents phase for about a month, and the drawings will be completed at the end of May and early June for bidding. The intent is to receive bids mid-summer, likely in July, and then construction can start. The contractors will begin work on the building, which will be built on the same site as current Eagle Point Elementary from fall 2020 through the anticipated completion of the building in spring 2022. Once school is out for the summer in 2022, the existing Eagle Point building can be demolished to complete the playfields, playground, parking lots, and other site features. As we mentioned before, the core planning group helped create the building floor plan through conversation about critical space relationships and priorities of the design. We capture these conversations into statements that we call guiding principles and design criteria. We'll review the highlights of these on the next several slides. Guiding principles are subjective statements that are agreed upon by the core planning group regarding the philosophy and big picture goals of the building. Key principles for this project including being safe and secure while also being welcoming and inviting, allowing each building to have its own unique identity, and to maximize opportunities for natural daylight throughout. The core planning group also spent a great deal of time discussing how to keep a variety of learning spaces to support flexibility, adaptability, and student choice, while keeping a close eye on how the buildings could be master planned for any needed future growth. The following 4 slides reflect the design criteria, which are objective statements regarding critical space relationships and features. The core planning group prioritized accessibility throughout the facility, as well as spent a lot of time considering how users of the building will flow throughout the day, considering efficiency. The classroom areas will be organized in pods that include 2 grade levels, with flexible collaborative areas throughout. The classrooms will each include operable doors that allow for learners to expand into these collaborative areas, as well as allow for supervision from inside the classrooms to this area. The Media Center will play a key role in the building and is located for maximum use at the heart of the building. On this side, you can see the final floor plans for the building. On the right-hand side of the slide is the main level, and the second floor can be seen on the left-hand side of the slide. These are color-coded by space type. The main office can be seen in a tan color to the right of the main entry, including a vestibule for security. Once inside the building, the Media Center is located to serve as a living room for the building and is central to both classroom wings. Grades K1 share this community just to the north, and specialized spaces for STEM, special education, and pre-K share the opposite community. There is a dedicated entry for pre-K to accommodate the midday transition for AM and PM programming. Above the K1 community is the grades 2-3 community, and finally grades 4 and 5 will be located above the special pre-K and SPED community. Spaces that will be used for events and by the community are on the right-hand side of the plan, including the cafeteria and the gymnasium. The music classrooms are also located on this side of the building for acoustic separations, as well as to distribute the specialist spaces across the building for good traffic flow at transition times. Directly across from the main entrance is the bus entrance, which will provide for students to enter the common lobby living room whether they arrive to this building by car, by bus, or if they walk or bike. Here's a version of that floor plan with that color tone removed. The user group meetings to review detailed space needs were held over the course of several rounds of meetings where participants could provide feedback and revised drawings were reviewed at the next meeting. These happened from December 2019 through February 2020, and the drawings on this slide and the following slides show the results of these meetings, including storage requirements, marker or tackboard locations, where windows or doors are in spaces, and even light switch and power locations. The 3-dimensional qualities of the spaces were also reviewed in these meetings. The following images are computer-generated renderings of what the building will look like. Here is the proposed exterior material color palette for the new elementary school at the Eagle Point site that will include a mix of brick, metal panel, and precast concrete. This is the view of the main entry taken from the parent drop-off loop. There will be a canopy with signage to make the main entry intuitive to find, with the office volume to the right of that main entry and the 2-story classroom volume on the left. As mentioned before, the building will utilize a mix of brick, metal panel, glass, and precast to create visual interest and a timeless color palette. Here's that same view taken from farther back in the parking lot. The music rooms can now be seen on the far right, and the dedicated pre-K entry can be seen on the left as a part of the classroom volume on the first floor. As you could see on the floor plan, across the main lobby from the main entrance is the bus entry, which can be seen in this view. The classrooms are now on the right-hand side of the image, and the cafeteria, which is a tall space, can be seen on the left. Overall, much of the building will be stacked in 2 stories to preserve site space, except on top of volumes like the cafeteria and gymnasium, which are more than 1 story themselves. The next several slides will show computer-generated renderings of what the interior of the building will look like. The color palette utilizes neutral materials aligned with vibrant colors that are used selectively in materials that are easy to change in the future, like paint. This is a view from right inside the main door after you've come through the secure vestibule. The bus entry is right in front of you, and the media center and access to the classroom communities are on the left. This space will include lots of natural daylight. Here is a view of the presentation area of the media center, and getting a little bit closer to that same presentation area with the lobby being seen in the background. And here you can see the open reading area beyond the book collection, which is along all of the windows of the Media Center for lots of natural light. The second floor connection can also be seen in this image. Now we have entered one of the 2 grade level learning communities showing classrooms around the flexible learning area. You can see along the perimeter of the space are the operable glass walls that allow for both for supervision as well as for classes to expand to use this area for individual, small group, and large group activities. Each community includes small group rooms for services, group work, or to support conferences and meetings. These spaces are all designed with adaptability, connectivity, and flexibility in mind. And finally, the cafeteria will have an entire wall of windows for lots of natural light, as well as acoustic treatments in the ceiling and on the walls. On this slide, you can see a diagram of the site. We've included an existing aerial photo on the left and a proposed site layout on the right. The existing building can be seen in the gray tone on the new site layout. The new building will be located so that the existing building can remain operational during construction. Another critical value of the design is to separate car and bus traffic. This can be seen with the parent drop-off loop that is at the front of the building, along with all of the parking for the building. Only the buses will be able to get to the bus loop area, which will also include striping for hard surface play area at recess. The site will also include green space fields, and we are working to incorporate additional buffering and screening along the eastern edge of the boundary, which is not yet reflected in the right-hand diagram.
Greetings, I'm Randy Anderson, Director of Business Services for School District 622. I will be overseeing this school construction project. I hope that you enjoyed the preview of this exciting project. We greatly appreciate the support of our district stakeholders making this project a reality for our students and community members. If you have any questions or would like to discuss the project, please feel free to give me a call at 651-748-7511 or email me at randerson, and that's ON, at isd622.org. Thanks for watching.